Welcome to a Milk Market Tidbit for the August 2023 Dairy Products Report that USDA released yesterday. This is Dr. Lawrence Jones with Farm Institute, and I'm recording this on Thursday morning, October the 5th. All right, so this report comes out, and I describe it as one of the most interesting reports because we can calculate a lot of numbers, but it's probably the least significant because of its age. Here in October 5th, we're actually just getting the August highlights, but we do get the output for cheese, butter, and a few other of the dairy stocks. Going into a dairy products report, I always have the tenet that if production is down from expected, okay, then demand is probably down because we already have the cold storage, we have everything else. So the only way that you can account for a lower than expected output is that demand was just down and they just didn't make the product. This report actually allows us to finalize all of the August numbers. And again, what we're looking for here are the cheese production as well as the butter production. Again, when I ever look at these reports, anything that's 99.5 to 100.5, month over month is just, not a significant change. So right away, your eye should come down here to butter. It was significantly different from last month. So let's graph this out and kind of look at what this means. So this is the daily cheese production with the red dots being the previous August numbers. And cheese production has been growing at 2.46% annually. And that came in not far above actually what the seasonally adjusted number was. And I went and I calculated, what is the capacity of cheese plants, and so that's up here and where we're at. So we're about 94% of actual capacity. But again, you look at the seasonality of this is the time of year that we're always normally low in cheese production. It's always good to look at the cheese that we produced, how did these percentages change? And so this is simply a percentage. Again, Italian is always the biggest at 43%. You can see that came up the trend line over here. American, which includes cheddar, is around 40%, and it came down, and the cheddar production came down. So it would suggest that there was a shortage of cheddar, and when again, the action on the spot market would suggest that there was a shortage of fresh cheese, and that would bear that out. So not a huge change in the other cheese production. Now, one of the things I like to look at is how much of the milk went into cheese. And so that's been growing. And if we look at where this came in, it was just a little bit lower than the seasonally adjusted number. So again, it would suggest that probably less milk went into cheese than we would normally believe. And it was below trend line. One of the things that caught my eye in this whole thing is cottage cheese. I think this is one of the sleepers. Now, again, this isn't a huge percent, but again, look at this difference here. Cottage cheese production is at the highest we've had it since 2015, came in much higher than our seasonally adjusted number. And so we just got to keep an eye on this cottage cheese as it's pulling milk away from other cheese production. This report allows us to kind of calculate this rolling cheese disappearance and production number. So this is like a rolling herd average. So what it does is it adds this month and take away a month a year ago. But what this tells me is we are just really in a flat demand scenario for almost the last year. We're just not seeing cheese disappearance go up like we had seen, previously. And so we've got to think that through. Right now, we've got about 38.6 days of excess cheese in cold storage, and that's pushing about 1.5 billion pretty hard. But to meet this demand, we need about 9.4 million cows. So it's going to be interesting to see how those cow numbers come in. Now let's turn our attention to butter. Butter production is very seasonal, as you can see. Again, August is always kind of the lowest in the production. We had seasonally adjusted, thought it'd be just above trend line a little bit, and it came in below. So that is a concern that butter production was below the seasonally adjusted number. And we look at the percent of fat accounted for by butter, and again, it's usually very low here in August, but this came in particularly low also. So that just says that fat went somewhere else other than butter. So here's my take on this report. So seasonally, cheese production is normally low. Class 1 ice cream and cottage cheese are all competing for milk, and we still had a lot of Class 1 headed south away from the cheese plants in August. And so my question, because we didn't draw down the cold storage very much, was cheese demand down about 20 million pounds? And I'm not going to be surprised if we find that out here soon, but it always takes about 2 months to figure out where disappearance was. And again, seasonally, butter production is normally low. Butter production was below trend line, so it's low, and it was beyond that. Butter production accounted for a smaller percentage of available fat, so fat was going somewhere else. And we had a big drawdown on stocks, which demand was probably good. So again, two different scenarios. I think demand is good for butter. I don't think it's so good for cheese. And seasonally, butter is production is quite low. That ends up the reports for this week. Next week is going to be a short week with a holiday on Monday.